After this week's deadly gas explosion in Western Sydney, the maintenance of Australia's public housing is under scrutiny. And inside the public housing block we're about to show you, the conditions are horrific. Residents are terrified and say every day is a battle just to survive.
Screaming, smashing things up, throwing feces, terrorising residents.
Murder, rape. They could even have had a record for trafficking and they'll be in this building.
That's someone's stash to come back later and use. That's a needle they've already used and a bag with drugs in it.
I have seen needles, blood spewed on the ground.
Does anyone deserve to live like this?
No. It doesn't matter how desperate you are. It's not humane.
This is what life looks like inside South Melbourne's Park Towers.
The sirens, is this pretty normal?
Yep. You actually forget that it's there. If it's not a siren, it's a fight. If it's not a fight, it's a door. It's a constant cycle.
And for the women and children who live here, it's a nightmare.
We've had my door smashed with a hockey stick and a crazy woman smashing at the kitchen window with an axe. We've heard a woman being murdered below us. And I just had to hold my children on the sofa, hearing her scream.
Amber has spent her life trying to escape abuse. She and her wife moved into the tower after losing their home in the Queensland floods.
I thought we'd be able to raise our grandson here. He was doing really well in the daycare. We were happy.
Did you feel safe living here?
For a while.
She says the COVID lockdowns were the tipping point.
When everyone was taken off the streets, put into the hotels, and then when the hotels ended, they then put them in all of the towers. And that's when everything just started to go downhill.
Some pretty scary stuff happened in the building while you were living here.
Yeah.
We're talking murders?
Yes. Quite a few people were killed within 3 months.
By whom?
The gangs that are hungry for the power. They want to run the building. I did say I was going to take you on a tour of the Taj Mahal.
Built in the late 60s, the public housing block is 31 floors of disrepair and despair.
The gentleman that lives here is quite mentally unstable, and the lady who lives next door has 4 children, some of which were quite young, under 10, and he will throw things at the wall, abuse them all hours of the night, all hours of the day.
He needs help.
Yep. He might refuse help, but that doesn't mean that you should give up. And they still haven't fixed his door either. The feces rubbed on the wall. As you can see, there's urine there. Because they're selling and they make money, they will literally just defecate, urinate. They're not allowed to leave the stairwell because they're doing a job.
Drug deals happen in the stairwells and the communal laundries.
There's also a risk with using the washing machines because it could have a needle tip in it, and then you have HEP or you have AIDS.
What's some of the worst stuff happening in laundries?
Sexual abuse and close to people being tortured.
People being tortured? What do you mean?
Really violent offenders, like torturing people.
Have you seen people having sex in the laundry as well?
So anything that happens in a brothel would most likely happen in a laundry, in a squat, or in the stairwell.
Convicted pedophiles and rapists in this building, which they house on floors with families. And there have been many cases of men trying to rub themselves onto children and mothers in the elevators.
This woman is too afraid to be identified. After fleeing an abusive, controlling partner 7 years ago, she and her 2 young children were hoping for a new life in Park Towers.
The changes came about when they took away the preschool. Community events no longer happened, and they started moving in dangerous people.
Now, she lives in fear every day.
They're always on alert now, especially in the elevators. You don't know who's going to be in there. You get a lot of people smashing the walls when they get in, screaming, intimidating. There have been many cases of gangs going into the elevators and robbing women in there. That's quite scary.
3 lifts service the entire building, which are constantly breaking down. It can sometimes take up to an hour to reach the ground level.
We just have to wait to see who's already in the elevator, and then you just kind of have to cross your fingers though. And we stand right at the front where the door is, in case we need to quickly jump out.
Not even the children's playground is safe.
There's usually people either intoxicated or under the influence or drug affected, kind of just watching the children. It doesn't make you feel very comfortable.
Security guards are at the bottom of the building. They're supposed to patrol the floors.
They're not here to protect people, they're here to protect the asset. They're not here for us.
Amber escaped the towers last year, but now she's worried for her daughter-in-law, Lakeisha, her partner, Stephen, and their 1-year-old son, who still lived there.
What's your biggest worry for your family still here?
That he doesn't have the right start in life, which is fundamental for any child, any human being. I don't want him to have a portion of the childhood that any of us have had.
On top of the danger, the building is also plagued with mould, mice and cockroaches.
They come through all the light fixtures, they come through the water sprinklers, they come through holes in the walls, they come through the radiator. We're talking thousands. And the building supervisors come and have a look and go, nothing happens.
In 2022, the Victorian Ombudsman reported the social housing complaint system was broken and that the government is yet to take any clear action on most needed reforms. Since then, complaints have soared by 83%.
Being told, no, you have to stay in this abusive environment and this unhygienic environment, they kind of make you feel that's what you're worth.
And it's an almost 2-year wait for public housing and social housing for Victorians fleeing family violence. The national average is 8 months. Park Towers is one of 44 public housing blocks across Victoria earmarked for demolition by 2051, meaning the state government will have to find new accommodation for 10,000 vulnerable people.
They will continue having the same social issues and the same hygiene issues because they are ignoring what is currently happening.
Mothers have already reported the extent to which women and children are subjected to violent and antisocial behaviour within the towers and have urged the government to take note for future developments.
These buildings are causing mental health issues and starting from an early age because it's the children who are growing up with it.
What's your message for government, for politicians?
Wake up, open your eyes and do something about it instead of just brushing it under the rug. We are your people. They get to go home at night without a worry in the world. Meanwhile, there's a child being born somewhere who's about to come to this building and their life's about to fall apart and they don't even know it yet.
Yeah, a huge thank you to Amber for speaking out on this issue.
It's so well.
It's so well. Yeah. Putting the story together, I was so angry on their behalf, but also because I know what it's like to live like that. I grew up in housing commission houses in Mount Druitt and Wayland, where that gas explosion, suspected gas explosion happened, and you know, back then it was bad. We had holes in the walls. We had no carpet on the floor, literally concrete we were living on. We couldn't play in the backyard because people would throw syringes over the back fence. So we were essentially prisoners of our own home. And it was no way for...
Were you high rise or...?
We were low rise, but in a complex where it was kind of despair upon disrepair piled on top of each other. And it wasn't safe for a single mum and 2 kids. That was 35 years ago and nothing has changed. And, you know, they talk about a home and what it's meant to be, and it's meant to be more than just a roof over your head. It's supposed to be the place that we feel safest. And it makes me, like, I'm shaking with rage because I think, you know, how are you ever supposed to get your life together when you're exhausted just trying to survive your living conditions every single day?
Imagine taking your children in a lift in that building. Like, what hope is there then?
Well, they even say that they, you know, some people don't want to go to work because they actually don't want to, you know, run the gauntlet of getting to the lift or working a night shift. So they become kind of stuck. We did ask for comment on camera from the Victorian Housing Department. They instead sent us through a statement, which you can read on our website. But, I mean, Amber nailed it. These people, they deserve better.